Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust to exit your business, high-end primary home, cryptocurrency, stock, or other highly appreciated asset is the best way for you to defer the tax and grow your wealth. I'm your host, Brett Swartz. Each episode, I am joined by some of the best financial, wealth, commercial real estate, and business minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. He's in fact probably one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, and that's, to be real honest. He thinks on another level, and it helps to make things that are a little bit complex really simple, and also has a passion for helping others to achieve freedom through building wealth in some areas that you might not have considered, and or ways to think about building wealth that you haven't considered before. And he's on a mission to help others do that every single day. Please welcome to the show with me, Dr. Buck Joffrey. Buck, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, Brett?
Hey, better than I deserve. Glad to have you on the show. Excited to dive right in because a lot of content to cover in this show today. So let's just start first off with a little bit about your story, Buck, for those who are getting to know you for the first time, and your current focus.
Yeah, it's it's a long story, right? But my background is as a physician. I trained broadly. Started out as in neurosurgery, head and neck surgery, and then plastics, and then kind of got the itch in entrepreneurship after reading a Robert Kiyosaki book called Cash Flow Quadrant, and started really looking at entrepreneurship, and started that with my own practices, branched out into other businesses. My investment interests were in real estate because that's just sort of the way I grew up. My family's a multifamily investing family as well. My dad's been doing that for 50 years. So the commercial real estate essentially residential real estate started from my own investing in apartment buildings, and then ultimately discovering the power of real estate syndications with a good operator, a sponsor. And then from there, realizing that, I had the ability to, really contribute on that side of the coin as well. And so I ultimately ended up in real estate private equity, and, mixed my interest in business with real estate. And I think that's been a good place for me. So that's kind of my background. And now, obviously, I have this real estate private equity operation. I've got probably about 2,000 accredited investors in there. A lot of them are physicians, and a lot of them are dentists, people in healthcare who kind of resonate with my story. But there's business people and a number of other broad group of people and demographic that all have one thing in common: they tend to make more money than your average Joe.
Excellent. Thanks for that brief part of your story. I want to take our listeners back one other step, and perhaps before the medical practice days, and before the investment real estate days. I believe we've all been given certain gifts, and perhaps these gifts are given to us to be a blessing to others. Some people call them strengths or superpowers, but I want you to go back, and I want you to perhaps share with us what you believe those gifts that were given to you, and how do they help how you help people today?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't say this to, act like I'm Mr. Modesty, but I don't consider myself like naturally the smartest guy in the room all the time. And I was a neurosurgery resident. I kind of did the top of the hierarchy. But I feel like the way I understand, the reason I was able to achieve always is because my own way of learning things was to be able to break things down into, very complex things into simpler pieces. And, that has served me very, very well. And even as in surgery, being able to take the more complex procedures, break them down into individual simple movements and, sort of very stereotyped movements, and, have things make sense to me in my own mind to master them has been really critical. Now, for me, actually, I think what has served my audience well is the fact that, listen, if, in order for you to explain something to others, you really have to understand it well. And I'm kind of a straight shooter in the sense that I understand things in a very straightforward manner. I try to simplify them. I always think about the way I bowl. If I ever go bowling, I don't put any spin on it. To me, I just aim for the front pin and I knock it down. So the point is that I think that my listeners would tell you, and my investors would tell you, that the thing that they find appealing about my style is the ability to sort of convey fairly complex strategies and paradigms so that they're pretty easy to understand.
Yeah, making the complex simple. And I can absolutely agree with that as a listener for your podcast, Buck. And that is as a gift, and it may have come naturally to you for years, but man, every day I try, I struggle with it, right? Because
Sure.
it's just slowing your mind down, slowing your emotions down, and then trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes and saying, how do I just get cut to the chase? And I like the analogy of bowling, right? I don't like to put any spin on it.
Yeah.
Aim for that first
Right.
pin and knock it down. Excellent. So let's now dive right into how that helps you help others build wealth and or just commercial real estate investing. When you're finding deals or looking at deals or looking at operators or underwriting property, what's the best kept secret to keeping it simple?
Well, let me go back to the analogy again of, what I felt like made me successful as a surgeon. I did a handful of the same procedures over and over and over again, and I perfected them. I got really, really good at them. I could do them in, half the time, a third of the time of the others, and get better results. And to me, what became attractive is to try to put those kinds of concepts in place. So when I approach real estate, specifically, my niche is what generally apartment buildings and larger apartment buildings, say 200 units plus. What I like about that space and the way we approach it is the same way I approach surgery, is to say, we're not out there to reinvent the wheel. I would love to tell you that every little, deal that we do is a work of art, but it's not. And if it were, I think it would have a higher likelihood of failure. What we try to do is to make, value add real estate in the residential space. We try to make it like McDonald's, right? We want everything the same. We want the day we acquire something, we're not going to sit around and think about what color we want to paint the walls. We're not going to think about which units we're going to renovate and how quickly. That's all been planned ahead of time. And I think what makes us unique in that regard is that what we're trying to do is, we're trying to do things well, but we're doing it the same, and we're trying to do it a lot quicker than everybody else. Now, why is that important? Because if you ever look at a pro forma, Brett, and every pro forma shows you like 5 years and, what you're going to do in the value add creation, the one variable that is probably ignored more than any other variable by the operators and the investors alike is the variable of time, right? So if you have a 5-year pro forma showing you that you're going to double your money in 5 years, which is pretty typical, right? Getting 17 to 20% annualized return. That's kind of what your typical pro forma will show. But what if you could do that in half the time? Well, then your returns just go way, way up. And that's really what we're focused on. We can change, we can create, we can take advantage of what the market will give us to the extent that we know what value add we can bring. We know what the comps are. We know what, how much money we can increase net operating income realistically over a period of time. But the one thing that we can control better than I think just about anybody I know out there is our ability to do it very, very quickly. And the faster we do something, the more money our investors make. And so I think that's probably one of the most unique aspects of what we do.
Excellent. So taking the the surgeon approach and perfecting surgery and applying that to perfecting the value add implementation of that business plan. Have everything pre-planned, pre-packaged, McDonald's
Yep.
like. Let's just go right. Let's go quickly instead of 3 to 5 years. Let's try to do it maybe in 2 to 3. Is that a fair summary?
Yep, that sure is.
Excellent. So now let's apply the concept of time to capital, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and to on your website I was reading and on one of your blogs, just the fact that in 2000, the 2008 crash, there was over $7 trillion lost in the stock market, right? Or perhaps even other places too, where people had overpaid for properties. I know I was in California, Buck,
Yeah.
and it was a time where at Marcus and Millichap, people were buying like crazy before the crash, and then everything hit. And Sacramento is one of the hardest hit cities in the country, and a crash. And I saw friends, family, clients lose half, some lose everything because
Mm-hmm.
they overpaid and they weren't making time their friend. They were overpaying or they had too much in the stock market. So just talk about the value of being able to diversify and have time be on your side.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I would just say with regard to the crash and everything, I mean, real estate is not independent of other asset classes, right? I mean, it's still linked. We could, I'm not going to pretend that we don't have some, when economies are bad, that we have some kind of, special power to stay away from the effects of that. But what we do have is we do have some power over, using some basic logic and understanding what, to me, one of the things that I like about our space specifically is we are in the business of, roofs over your head. So if you go back to, the basic fundamental needs that people have, they need to be eating and you need to have some water and you need a roof over your head. Right. So that's a fundamental thing that it's always struck me is that's where I want to be. I want to be where people still need to pay for. They don't need to be in office. They don't need to be in retail, but they do need a roof over their head. Now, the other thing that generally speaking, that philosophically has kept us in pretty good shape, even through COVID, pretty much unscathed, is the fact that we're not dealing in the A space, not really going after that glitzy A-class property. We're typically looking at B and C class properties that are more for the working class. And I'm definitely not, you're not where D-class properties where you're going to get yourself in trouble with poor credit and people, not having jobs, but people who are, service workers and blue collar workers, et cetera. They need a place to live. We have had tremendous luck with that, even through COVID. We have had very little in the way of significant problems collecting rents, and part of that is also choosing the right markets. As well. I mean, I live in California too, Brad, and I love it. I live in Montecito, but honestly, there's no way I would invest here. There's just no way, right? Because I think the laws, the business friendliness of California are not there. I also think that there's a fundamental difference in demographics as well. I think, in Texas, I feel like we hit a population that regardless of where they were at, they felt inclined to have to pay the rent. That was, it's part of their culture. I don't know what it is, but we didn't run into the problems of people not wanting to pay rent or making it a political statement. So, Texas and Arizona, we didn't have a lot of issues there. So one last thing I'll add is, to the extent that if you look back at 2008, 2009, and the people who got hit the hardest there, in residential real estate, it sure, the people who were investing in large complexes, and they mostly in the major markets like Dallas and Phoenix and things like that they survived just fine. The real people who got hit, they get hit harder, speculators, right? That's not what our business is. We're not in the business of speculating. We're not in the business of buy and hope. We're in the business of buying and actually creating equity. And with commercial real estate, it's quite simple. It's math. And it's, again, goes back to the way it is that I like it. It's about driving up net operating income. You increase the amount of rents that come in, and hopefully the scale that you have helps you decrease expenses. And that is the value of your property. And so the more you can do that, the quicker you can do that. Not only are you making your investors money, but you're actually de-risking that property by lowering the leverage, because you've increased value in the property.
Yeah, 100%. So much wisdom there. And I want to dive into Montecito, Santa Barbara, and capital gains tax solutions is part of our podcast, right?
Sure.
Part of what we do is the Deferred Sales Trust, deferring taxes on the highly appreciated primary homes. So there's a recent deal actually done in Montecito, fairly big house. Look it up on Google. As well as I did one for a client of mine out of Palo Alto. And then you have these folks that have been in these houses for 10, 15, 20 years, bought it, pretty low. Prices go through the roof, and they're sitting on this pile of equity. And then the next equation comes in. I think a part of the wealth formula to consider is the return on equity, right? Especially in a primary home where it's not cash flowing. According to Robert Kiyosaki, your primary home is not an investment; it's a liability. And it's not paying you or producing, giving you back money in order to have more time and energy, or just the ability to give more, right? Or help someone else in a different need, a different cause. So just walk through the big challenge facing a lot of high-end primary homeowners as you see it in the Santa Barbara, in the La Joillas, in the Silicon Valleys, and what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is something of a challenge I think a lot of people have, because when it comes to real estate that's personal, that most people don't know how, they don't know that they have any options, right? I mean, I think people in real estate have known about 1031 exchanges, like exchanges and that kind of thing, but I think very few people in the general public probably know that they have some ability to mitigate their taxes on a personal residence. So this is actually, in my opinion, is a really huge opportunity. And as you mentioned, I live in Montecito, and despite the fact that I don't want to do any business in California, I love living here, and a lot of people do. And there's a lot of people with homes that have appreciated millions of dollars in the last decade. And especially right now, I don't know how it is where you are, Brett, but I mean, houses are going for millions of dollars over where there would have pre-COVID, even, because we've got so many people moving in from LA and San Francisco, et cetera. So it's a tremendous opportunity for people to, pick up some of that equity. And I think some people probably are not selling because they're like, okay, well, I mean, I'm going to hit a huge tax bill and I don't know what I'm going to do with this money. And in California in particular, again, our long-term capital gains are still problematic because we still pay significant state taxes on that as well. So it's not like doing long-term capital gains in North Dakota or something like that. So
yeah, 100%. It's 20% federal, right? 13.3 for the state, and so you're looking at 33%. And so the key is, how do you defer that, and how do you perhaps make income on that? Unique part about the Deferred Sales Trust is you can now sell high, and that's the goal, right? And then you can diversify and put it into multifamily investments, passively or actively. You can put it into the stock market. You can put it into hard money lending, and essentially capture that value and start producing cash flow from that. And I think it's part of redefining wealth, like you say, as freedom to do what you want with your life, right? Versus perhaps feeling stuck in that big house. I'm able to move towards the grandkids, or or to get more passive wealth coming in, or just to diversify. I have some clients, Buck, they're just, they go, you know what? I just don't want to go through a potential another crash, or even just, I want to just do something else. I want to go start a new
Yeah.
business venture. So it's taking that wealth and transferring it. So talk to us about redefining wealth as freedom to do what you want with your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's fundamentally what we're all trying to achieve, right? I mean, and what we're going after the money so that we can do whatever we want with our life. But I think for me, a lot of people, just to be clear, I mean, I think that there's this. I was influenced by Robert Kiyosaki as well, and there's this initial impact, or there's this initial thing that everybody gets where when you read Kiyosaki, you start thinking about cash flow and how you're going to be able to cash flow yourself into quote unquote retirement. Sometimes it does take a few rounds of equity growth, though, right? And so if you have somebody in physicians, for example, we have a lot of people making $500,000 a year. Well, if they even found something that was, cash flowing 10%, which is very difficult to do right off the bat these days, they'd need to have $5 million in investments going. So sometimes what we're trying to do in our group with our investor group is we're really focusing on equity growth so that we can take a principal amount and double it, triple it over the course of the next, 5 to 7 years, hopefully, and then start implementing more of a cash flow play there. So there's different ways to do this. But I think that, they're at the end of the day, just having that money move fairly quickly is really important. I think what you alluded to with Robert Kiyosaki calling your house a liability, it's I mean, if you have a mortgage, particularly, it's a liability. But even if you don't, you just have a bunch of debt equity there, right? So you're not really doing anything with it. And what we're really all about is velocity. We want to create we want to create growth in your money. And if it's just sitting in a house in equity, it's not really growing very fast. I mean, granted, if you're in Montecito, it's probably growing pretty fast right now, but it'll grow faster somewhere else with a little bit of leverage. So.
Yeah, 100%, right? Time to sell, time to buy, time to diversify, a time to relocate your capital. I think it was Tesla, HP, and Oracle all in the past, I don't know, 150 days have all decided to move to Austin, Texas, which
Mm-hmm.
is just absolutely on fire as well for growth. And it has been for a few years already. It's not anything new, but
Mm-hmm.
it just keeps going. And so I think it's Wayne Gretzky says it well, Buck. You want to skate to where the puck's going to be.
Right.
Right. And so how are you skating right now? Where do you feel are the most opportunities
Mm-hmm.
for real estate investing?
I think that, we're coming off of COVID here. And as you know, in the podcast ecosystem, a lot of people had really predicted a lot of doom and gloom. And even some people I respect a lot had really, even until like a month ago, had pretty much resigned to the zombie apocalypse. And sure enough, it didn't happen. I admit, when this first happened, I was worried about it too. But it became pretty clear in our own portfolio that it was really, really resistant to what was happening. Now, here's the thing that is going on in the big picture that makes me happy that we're doing what we're doing. What did get crushed during COVID is pretty much most other sectors of real estate. So office, retail, all these hotels, they all got crushed. Now hotels will probably come back. I mean, but you look at something like office, and everybody's used to, working on Zoom now. Is that predict some sort of long-term change in, behavior of people and companies? It's certainly cheaper to have people work at home. Same thing with retail. I mean, people haven't gone to stores much in a year, right? And if Amazon didn't already have a monopoly on everything, well, they do now, and people's habits have changed. So I think what we're seeing is that big, institutional money that was previously in the space of retail or office and stuff, they're all shifting and they're all trying to get into the residential multifamily game because they've seen how resilient our market is. Now, the good thing is for us is that we're going to keep doing what we do. And the good thing is that we know how to do this because in every, in every kind of different real estate niche, I mean, there's a learning curve to this. So we're ahead of the game here. They're making it hard sometimes because they're throwing stupid money at deals, but we still have the off market. We still have the relationships within multifamily, and we can recognize a good deal. And we're also looking at the ugly deals, right? They're not going to want the ugly deals because we know how to make them better. So at the end of the day, I think, where is the puck going? Again, I'm happy to say that in the next 6-7 years, I still see a tremendous growth in multifamily as an investment. So.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. I also really love senior housing assisted care facilities, memory care. I love independent
self-storage too. Self-storage is great.
Actually, yeah, I've been learning more about that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then, mobile home parks too, value add, anything that can be kind of value add or growth mm-hmm. or, really landlord friendly markets. What are the biggest, obstacles you see for high net worth individuals as it pertains to capital gains tax? And I don't know if you've studied some of the potential Biden tax law changes, right? Taking it from 20% federal to 39 point, basically doubling it.
Yeah.
And so walk us through just your thoughts on that. And also cryptocurrency. I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah. So in terms of the Biden stuff, remember, it's a 50-50 Congress right now. And there are a couple of pretty conservative Democrats. So, do I think that capital gains is going to, for the most part, be eliminated? I actually don't. I think that would be a very, very difficult, I just don't think that that's something that those conservative Democrats would go for. So here's the thing is that in my, what we talk about all the time is we can't necessarily control what the new legislation is going to be. But, what we're trying to do is, make our investments continue to grow. Investors and business owners tend to have opportunities regardless of who the administration is, right? So, yes, the Biden administration is probably going to figure out how to raise some taxes somewhere. But at the end of the day, investors and business owners are probably going to be just fine, probably not get hit too hard because net, there'll probably be some opportunities for us. I mean, even if you're talking about this, Green New Deal concept or something like that, that can't happen without substantial opportunities for us in the sense that, what is the tax code? My CPA, my friend Tom Wheelwright always just says that the tax code is just a series of incentives, right? Unless you're a W-2 wage earner, which unfortunately most of my investors are, you have a lot of opportunity to mitigate your taxes by doing and investing in the things that government wants you to do. So if you are, what we advocate for, in our community is really trying to change your facts and become, increase your presence in that investor quadrant, as Robert Kiyosaki would say. If you're not a business owner, at least try to really, really rev up that investor quadrant. And by the way, I mean, if you're sitting on a huge amount of equity in your home, taking that into, from your personal, taking it from your personal account, debt equity and pushing that into an investor quadrant would be a huge way of sort of, jump-starting that entire existence.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, debt equity into an investor quadrant, or a business owner quadrant, right? Getting on the right side of that makes a whole lot of sense. So now let's dive into cryptocurrency briefly. Curious on your thoughts on that. Are you personally investing in crypto at all for yourself?
Yeah.
And what do you think? What do you think of it?
Well, I never really think about cryptocurrency as an investment outside of Bitcoin. Bitcoin to me is, I think it's real. I think it's digital gold. I think even though it's volatile right now, when that, $1 trillion market cap goes up to, $10 trillion, I don't think it's nearly as volatile anymore. I think Bitcoin's here to stay. I, actually recently won a bet with somebody about Bitcoin going to 50,000, and I got a Bitcoin from this person at 50,000. If you want, I think Bitcoin will probably hit 250,000 in the next 5 years sometime. I think it's institutional investors and pension funds and all that are all going to start getting interested in this, and it only takes a really, really small allocation, like less than 1% or 0.5%, 20 basis points, whatever, and but by these huge funds, and before you know it, that's how you get to $250,000 Bitcoin. Now, as far as the rest of cryptocurrency goes, do I own it? Yeah, I own Bitcoin, and I also own a fair amount of alternatives, but to me, those are all sort of, so I'm long Bitcoin, but with everything else, I'm looking at it as very much a speculative play. I think that probably 99% of alts will be gone in the next 5 years. But in the short term, there's some opportunity to make some money. So I wouldn't really call that investing, though, Brad. I mean, I think it's more of a gamble, honestly. You're just sort of timing the speculation on this stuff. Some of those projects will turn out great, but I mean, there's no rhyme or reason for the prices on these things. So if you want to, I have some favorite projects. I put some money into them, and I kind of look at that as my asymmetric bucket. If it 10x's, I'm great. If I lose it, then oh well.
I'm 100% with you. I appreciate you sharing that. And by the way, we're working on a $9 million deferred sales trust crypto case right now for that exact reason, that you can now defer taxes using the deferred sales trust for crypto, and it's putting in the right order, get everything set up prior to. But I think I'm going. Any of my crypto friends or people who have it, I'm like, hey, now's a great time to sell. It's gone back up, right, on a lot of these. Get out, diversify, go into investment real estate, right? Capture that, because this last downturn took a little while to get back. So
Yeah.
that's just something that we're really trying to help. So anyone wants to learn about that, they can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com and look up and schedule a free time, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That being said, Buck, are you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. So knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you'd make sure you would tell yourself to do?
25. I would probably, share my thoughts on entrepreneurship sooner rather than later, because I had no idea that entrepreneurship or investing, I didn't know anything about it, but I would probably share that information with myself.
Excellent. Yeah, I like that. Share your thoughts earlier. After building your net worth and helping others, countless do the same, what's the single best practice to implement to be successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think giving back. I think just being able to help your peers, and giving back to your own community.
Love it. Best real estate investment ever?
Well, my best are probably dumb luck. We're routinely, we're averaging 30% annualized return, and for our investors in our syndications. But some of the early apartment buildings that I bought right after residency was getting 500-600% returns because of appreciation in the right markets. But Excellent. That was dumb luck.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sometimes it works in your favor, right?
Yeah.
What's the one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Cash Flow Quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki.
I'm actually re-listening to that on the Audible book right now, and it's I highly recommend that as well. Favorite leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Leadership, I don't know, but for what I do, in the history of the world, no one has ever taken a rental car to the car wash. I believe that was Lawrence Summers, uh, former Harvard president. Also, he was a Treasury guy under Obama.
And what does that mean, Buck? Because I'm not even sure I'm following, but I know there's something there.
Well, it's about ownership, right? It's about owning things instead of renting them, and also it's also about being a business owner, right, as opposed to being an employee. You know, or even how to structure your employees, if you are a business owner. Basically, if you don't have any ownership, you don't care enough about what's going to happen. So you rent a car. I mean, why would you take it to the car wash, right? But you own that car, you're going to take care of it.
Beautiful. Love it. Thanks for bringing that home for me. What are you curious about right now?
I'm curious what's going to happen with my alternative coins and cryptocurrency.
I'm curious about that deferred sales trust now. If they go through the roof.
Yeah, I might be contacting you about. I thought I was going to be contacting you, and then there was a big reversal recently. So we'll see how that goes.
Hey, yeah, no, never too early for us. By the way, the earlier the better, and we don't charge until you close. So get with it. All right, last question, Buck. After all your success and helping others to have tons of success, and I think the Wealth Formula podcast, and all the investments you're doing, and of course your career in the medical field, how do you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach for new heights?
Yeah, I mean, as far as being centered, you don't have to, and for me at least, you don't have to go far. I don't have to go further than my children. I have 3 little girls, 11, 8, and 5, and they'll keep me centered pretty easily. What was the second part of the question?
And how do you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new heights after you've accomplished so much? What keeps you what's your why to go for the next mountaintop?
Well, for me personally, here's the thing, is that one thing I discovered after reading Cash Flow Quadrant was that I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur at my core. And so entrepreneurs who are like me, at least, that they see this as making money is just keeping score, right? That's all it is. And so what we're constantly striving to do is to do things better, to be innovative and create. It's our way of being, creative. I'm not an artist, but in a way, this is my art, is by creating and making things more efficient and finding ways to do better. And the way we keep score is by making money. So
beautiful. Yeah, I really resonate with that. I appreciate that, Buck.
Mm-hmm.
Buck, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for sharing so much wisdom with us and a part of your story. For those who want to get in touch with you, Buck, what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, I think if you're into podcasts, Wealth Formula podcasts, we're all over the place, iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. No, we don't do this restream thing that you're doing yet, but maybe that's something we ought to do. Yeah, we're all over the place. Or wealthformula.com if you want to check out what we're doing.
Beautiful. And for our listeners, I want to encourage you, if you need or want to potentially defer capital gains tax on the sale of a primary home, business, investment, real estate, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com and get your free consultation. Download our free ebook, Escape Feeling Trapped by Capital Gains Tax. And with that, I want to thank you for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax referral strategy or connecting with someone like on the Deferred Sales Trust, or connecting with someone like Buck Joffrey and investing in multifamily Valueadd syndications is a great or the best way to grow your wealth. With that, please rate, review, subscribe. We appreciate you listening and being a part of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions Nation.